The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
I am Shannon Penrod, and I just sneezed just as we were going live. Bless Chris Desmond. Um, and it's that kind of a morning already, you guys. I'm so thrilled to be here with you this morning. This may be the last show of 2025. Maybe. We're hoping we don't have a show with Dr. Grant Shea this coming Tuesday, but we're hoping we have one the Tuesday after. But fingers crossed. But this will be the last Autism Live of the year because it keeps the holidays are on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So this will be the last Autism Live, but it may be the last show for Autism Network of the year. And that always makes me emotional. It's like another year coming to a completion. And it's a time to reflect and look back and say, are we doing what we had hoped? And to look at 2026 and see, what do we want to do? How do we want to further the conversation? So I'm thinking about all those things. And I know Parker already wrote to us this week and said what he would like to see in 2026. And it really got me inspired, Parker. It really, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, let's do that. Anyway, Chris is reminding me that we are live right now. Today is the 17th of December, 2025. And we're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and a bunch of other places. I know it looks different because I'm at home for various and sundry reasons. I needed to speak an event this morning that got me very emotional before, so I needed to be on Zoom from here to do that because it was early. But that's why we're here. But still, got a great show planned for you because I want to do one last look at toys for the holidays from a different lens of looking at how are we using them to teach the different things that we want to teach, and talking about different categories of toys that are useful for all kids, but especially our kids on the spectrum. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But before we do that, a couple of quick things that I just want to appreciate and love on all of you. Part of the reason why I'm emotional is that I was just speaking virtually at one of our centers for CARD. And I have so much love for CARD. CARD is the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And if you follow this show, you know that my son was treated at CARD and that we got our lives back because of that, and that he has his life because of that. So, and what's amazing, our fabulous Chris Desmond that I talk about all the time, he makes beautiful content and made a video this summer that I was just airing for them during my talk. And it always gets me emotional because one of the many things I love about CARD is CARD has been doing what they've been doing for so long that we now have a plethora of adults to talk with about their time at CARD and what it has meant to them and what they're doing with their lives. And it just every single time levels me. So I want to say thanks to Chris Desmond and to all of the beautiful people who work at CARD who are, right now sitting somewhere and playing with a child to help them to learn and help them to grow, playing with them in a very specific way, using the principles of ABA in a positive, fair way so that those kiddos have an opportunity to learn. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I just wanted to say my gratitude to all of those people. Whew, gets me crying. And thank you to Chris for making the beautiful video that shows it so distinctly. One of the things that when we were doing Autism Live for a while, and then we started the Autism Network. And one of the reasons why was because my son graduated from high school. And when he graduated from high school, we invited Peter Farrig, who was the first ever therapist that came to our door. And I still refer to him as our autism whisperer. We invited him to come to graduation. We only got 4 tickets, which means it was me, my husband, my niece, who's been a part of my son's story from the beginning, and Peter. Right? That's the place of honor that he held. And when the graduation was over, we were standing in the courtyard and everybody was taking pictures. And my son had all these friends in high school and they were standing arm in arm and we were all taking pictures. And at a certain point, my son said, "Hey, wait a second," over the tops of everybody's heads because he's tall and his friend David is tall. And he was like, "David, man, come here. You got to get in this picture. Everybody stop for a second. David, get in here." And he made a hole next to him for David. And then he put his arm around and he's like, "Okay, everybody, now take the pictures. David's here now." And we all just, laughed and because we love David and, it was great and whatever. And Peter about fell down and, and he had tears running down his face. And he said, "Did you just see that? Did you see all the things that he did? Did you see all the minutia that he did in this social situation to include a friend? Did you see that?" And I said, "Yeah, that's Tuesday. Peter, you're the one that taught him all that." And he's like, "I know, but I just don't get to see it in an adult. All that I work with kids and then I don't get to see." And that made my head go, "Okay, we got to show more of this." So thank goodness we have Chris Desmond because he's the one who makes it happen. So, you know, uh, what are the words that I want to say? I can't come up with them, but so grateful for you, Chris, to do that because it's powerful, powerful stuff. It was powerful as one of the many families to live it, but it's powerful to be able to show it and show so many people. Amazing. Okay, so that's that. We're going to put that to the side. But play is a big part of that. And because if we're not having fun with the kiddos, then it's not fair. And you know that Dr. Grant Pichet always says that it has to be fair. So before I get too far, we're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You can be writing in right now. We have the chat open and you can write in from any of those places. Now, of course, we know that most of you are listening in podcasts. That's okay. We still love you. But if you're listening in podcasts, and we are available wherever you get your podcasts, we are a free download on all of those platforms. However, you will get ads, right? That's how because it's never really free. I don't know if you know that, but it's never really free. And the way we defray that cost is through ads. Now, if for any reason, if that's not your jam, if you're on the treadmill and it's messing you up, there is a way for $5 a month to subscribe to the feed from everything we do at Autism Network without ads. It's $5 a month. Go to glow.fm/autism-live. I know it says Autism Live, but you will get Ask Dr. Doreen with that as well, because it's everything that we do on the Autism Network. And it comes right in your inbox. You don't have to go looking for it. And you can listen at your leisure, as they say. So that's available to you too. Now, one other note that I want to say, we just did the All Ghouls Gala, and we one of the awards that we gave, the Using Your Voice Award, was to the show Love on the Spectrum. And we had many of the Love on the Spectrum. It was a great night. We had so much fun. But just yesterday, before we left the office, I got a notice from Love on the Spectrum that they are casting right now, and that they have that right now it's open casting. They're looking to hear from people who are interested in potentially do it. Now, they were very particular about the fact that you can have this meeting. It does not mean that you have to do the show. Like, you can come and talk to them. But what they really want, they say, if you or someone you know is interested in speaking with them, please send an email with a brief description of the person and a photo. And you want to send that to production at, I can't even read because it's so small, northernpictures.com.au. Because they started production in Australia, but this is for the new season of the United States. They only want people in the United States, so let me clarify that. But if you or someone you know is interested, that's what you need to do, and then you started a discussion, and then perhaps that leads to more discussions, and perhaps not. So that's entirely up to you. But we wanted to let you know, if you are interested in being a cast member, there's the info to how to start that happening. Because I know some of you have asked us that before, and there you go. All right, so let's get busy because we have a lot to talk about with toys. This is one of the things This is why I do the toy guide, because I always have loved toys. I have always loved play. I have always loved play as a teaching tool, as a teacher. I have always believed that if you're having fun, you're going to learn more. Whether, my degree is in theater and acting, and I taught theater and acting for a lot of years, but I also taught high school English, which is sometimes not fun. But it was always my belief that if my students were having fun, which is different for everybody, then they would learn faster and they would learn more. And research kind of bears that out, right? If we're having fun, we are going to take in more information than if we're just trying to jam in stuff that doesn't is meaningless to us. So play is powerful. And I think a lot of times it's like people have a misunderstanding, and sometimes people, it's two sides of the coin, right? Sometimes people will say, well, play is everything, which is why I'm not doing ABA therapy. I'm just going to do play therapy. And I'm like, okay, that's great. You do you do whatever it is that you want to do. However, play with a purpose for me is the key, because we can play and we can play everything that we love the whole time and have a good time. But if we're playing for an educational purpose, first of all, I think we have more fun if you're doing it right. And second of all, the research shows that that's so much more effective at learning. So, not just playing, not just saying to the kids, you go over there and you play. Although, one of the things we can teach them how to do is to go over there and play by themselves so that you can go to the bathroom, or you can make whatever it is that you're making for dinner, right? Or take a break. But that's a lesson to be taught, and you got to teach that in a fun way. So, what I want to do today is talk about some of the different ways that we want to teach play, and some of the different things that we want to do with our kiddos on the spectrum. And really, let me clarify, this is a way you would play with anybody, but there are some nuances to it playing with somebody on the spectrum. I want to admit that I feel I was a great aunt. But when it came time to play with my child, I felt like the rules were different and that I didn't have the rule book. And it was demoralizing for me. It was depressing for me, because I was like, I don't know how to connect with my child. I had some great people who showed me how to play with my child. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. It's hard because you really need to be with the individual child, but I'm going to give you a bunch of suggestions of types of play. I also want to tell you that all of these types of plays that we're going to talk about, they're available and in great detail in Skills for Autism. All of these are categories that there are in there, and they have step-by-step lessons, that if you're interested and you're like, okay, that one, I want to learn more about that, skillsforautism.com. Okay, excuse me. So let's get started, and let's talk about one particular, and I'll try to talk about these across different ages, because there's different things that you learn at different ages. So one of the biggest set of toys that we start with even little kids are cause and effect toys. So a hallmark of a cause and effect toy is that, it has a beginning, middle, and end. And maybe it has lots of beginnings, lots of middles, and lots of ends, but it's something that you have to do something, and as a result, something happens. And we want these kinds of toys, even for babies. Like one of my favorite cause and effect toys, it's a little bar toy that, they have to push a button. And when they push the button, the little toy pops up, right? And they slide a button and the toy pops up, and they, flick the switch and the third one pops up. It's one of my favorite toys for babies, and they make them themed, like I remember Jem had one that was Sesame Street themed. So when you push the button, Oscar the Grouch popped up, right? And then you could push it back down, and now it's like peekaboo, right? But that's a cause and effect toy. And you do that with babies, little babies, from the time that they sit up, even before they sit up, those gyms that they have for kids that you lay them on the mat and they can kick their feet. And it makes noises, it makes musical noises. That's a cause and effect toy. And they're great because it helps to gain their attention to something, and they're realizing, oh, if I do this, then that happens. And we want the little synapses in the brain to have those kinds of experiences. And if we find something that's pleasurable, we will find that they will, if they like the noise that it makes, whether it's a drum or cymbals or musical notes when they kick their feet against the gym, if they like it, they will do more of it. And that's just behavior, right? If we like the result of it, we'll do more of it. So starting with any kind of cause and effect toy, but the truth of the matter is that we do this up through adulthood. Think of any video game that our kids play, right? If I push the X button, my character jumps, right? That's cause and effect. And it's brilliant because that's the beginning of understanding that what I do has a consequence. And sometimes the consequences are good and sometimes the consequences are not good. But it's like a building block for everything. So the cause and effect toys and there were several of them that I could have grabbed from the toy guide for this year. If you would put that back up for me, Chris. Just some examples, like a marble run is always a cause and effect toy. And it's so effective because if I put these pieces together, the ball does not make it to the bottom, right? But if I put them together a different way, then my ball does make it to the bottom. And it has a very distinct beginning, middle, and end, which makes it a perfect reinforcer for things. This bubble kit that we are featuring, it makes giant bubbles, cause and effect. If you don't dunk the sticks with the rope in long enough, you may not get a bubble. But if you do, you're going to get a bubble. So cause and effect also, as we grow, creates trial and error. Same thing with a slinky. A slinky is cause and effect. If you wanted to walk down the stairs, right, what do you have to do? So all great cause and effect toys, and they weren't the only ones, but they were just the first ones that I saw. Really important that your child, no matter what age they are, has some kind of cause and effect happy thing in their life because it helps them to understand how to achieve. And when they decide what they want to achieve, they're going to be able to apply that knowledge to something else, whatever their passion is, which we'll talk about in a second. Okay, on to the next one, the next kind of toy. So this is a category I just love, and I really am kind of bummed. This is functional pretend play. I didn't understand this. Can I be completely honest? These were the toys that when I was an aunt, I shied away from. My mother loved them. She would always get them for her grandchildren. I would go, why? Like toy vacuum cleaners and the toy kitchens and the pots and the pans and the that have to be scrubbed and all the things as like housework things. And I would go, why? Why are we doing these toys? To me, it felt like teaching them to go into servitude, and I didn't like that as a young aunt. I did not like that. And then, of course, when my child was diagnosed with autism, and they started talking to me about functional pretend play, and that functional pretend play is so that you can mimic what the people around you are doing. And one of the most important skills in life is to learn through observation. And I didn't get that before, but I do now, and I see the power of these toys. Because I quote Dr. Phil from time to time, but one of the things that he always says is you have to have a safe place to fail. That used to take my breath away, and we're like, no, but we don't want to fail, we want to succeed. But the truth of the matter is you don't get to succeed until you've trial and errored things and potentially failed. So when we and the toys that I picked from the toy guide, there's a toy cash register. And what a great toy, right? Because you're going to experience a cash register, although they've changed a lot. Yeah. But this one has a scanner. I like it. Uh, you know, and a card reader. I like it. They're going to experience a cash register in their life, whether they're purchasing something or they're working in a store. And having a knowledge of and having an appreciation of how to work a cash register, if we've played it and played cash register, so much more fun, right? Because if they get it wrong and give you the wrong change, nobody's going to get mad. It's a safe place to fail which makes it a safe place to learn, to grow. We don't want them learning a cash register for the first time on their first job, right? We learn through play, which is a great thing. I don't remember what the other one was, Chris. I'm sorry. I have no. Oh, a drum. We have a drum in the baby category, and it looks like somewhat like a drum, right? But it's got all these educational things, and it's a positive thing to do because they're going to learn a lot of hand-eye coordination, but they're playing like an adult would play with a drum, and that's what functional pretend play is all about. I remember getting, used to be you go to the Toys R Us aisle. Don't we all miss Toys R Us? Although they have aisles in Target and they have aisles in Macy's that are Toys R Us. They're just not as big. I used to love taking Jem to Toys R Us. But anyway, I remember getting him this big, huge thing, and it was Subway, and it was Subway sandwich stuff, all miniature plastic, right? And like a drink that said Subway on it and whatever. And boy, we would play let's pretend that we're going to Subway. And he would make a sandwich and then we would pretend to eat and all of those things, which was a precursor to taking him to a restaurant. So I have a trunk that it's funny because kids do pick up things, and he had this little plastic toy, and he was taking it and he was running it along the trunk like you process a credit card. And I was like, oh, that's so funny. But he had learned that that's what you want. You want kids exhibiting behavior that they have learned through observing it. And sometimes we got to prompt that with fun toys. So functional pretend toys are great. Now, does that run out at a certain age? I don't know, because it depends on what the kiddo is into. But for instance, some people, when their child is 4, will go out and buy them a real electric guitar because they feel that their child is ready. But other people are going to buy that 4-year-old a pretend guitar for them to play with. And then maybe they go to Guitar Hero and then maybe they get a guitar, right? At some point. But I know a lot of adults who play Guitar Hero still. So, and that's a functional pretend toy. It's mimicking a guitar, but easier, right? I'm not good at it either way. I don't know that it's easier for me, but for some people it's easier. So I would say be open-minded about when you're thinking about what you want to get for somebody, think about what they love, right? And is there a step up that we can get them that's easier, more accessible before the real thing? It's so much fun when you buy them the real thing, but you know, having something that they can play with as they get there, right? I think it's very common for, families that they have an artist in the family, that they get them a kid's art kit before they get them an adult art kit, all functional pretend. Okay, so moving on, then there are many steps to learning play, and we want to make sure we get the functional pretend play, but then we move on to imaginative and symbolic play. And you can even do this without toys. I know the toy manufacturers don't want me to tell you that, but when we go to imaginative play, what we're doing is endowing something with another quality. So the two that I have there for you, there's the aqua sword, which is so much fun, you guys. You fill the middle with water, and then it's in no way a real sword, right? But it looks like a sword. It's, multicolored, not like a sword, but kids understand, oh, I'm pretending that this is a sword and it squirts water and it's really fun, but they're imagining that they're knights and that they're fighting with the swords, and the reward is that water goes everywhere. What a wonderful imaginative play. I also love color forms. I just do. I know it's from my childhood, but speech therapists still use color forms and the felt pieces too. And what I love about this is that we're playing, imagining what the weather is and dressing her for the weather. That's imaginative play. Now, symbolic play goes a little bit further, where sometimes we're just miming stuff, right? It doesn't even have to be a toy. I can use A bottle of water can become a microphone or a phone. Can become, all kinds of things. Or I can actually mime it. I can pretend that in my hand, I have a phone and I'm dialing going, oh, it's for you, right? And these are important. A lot of times you guys will write in and say, I feel that my child doesn't have any creativity. They're very black and white about things, and I don't know how to get to that. This is exactly how you start with functional pretend play, right? Then you move to imaginative play, and then you move to symbolic play. And if all that's, you're like, wait a second, I need to know more about this. It's all in Skills for Autism, and they will take you through the steps to teach it and make it fun, which is super awesome. Okay, next one, Chris. Then we get to sociodramatic play. And excuse me, some of these overlap as well, but sociodramatic play is when you are going to take on the characteristics of somebody other than you. So this can be costumes, or I love in our toy guide this year, we have that doctor's bag, right? And you become the doctor. And, kids, if you, especially for our kids on the spectrum, if you do it once, you say, okay, here's my doctor's bag. We're going, and then you open it up and you're like, oh, I'm going to give you a shot, and I need to take your blood pressure, and I'm going to take your temperature. Let me listen to your heart, right? They go, oh, this is what we're playing. Even kids on the spectrum, right? And these are all brightly colored so that they will love them. It's Fisher Price. You can't go wrong with Fisher Price, right? And then you hand it to them and say, okay, I'm the patient now. Are you the doctor? Okay, doctor, help me. And they will, have watched and they'll mimic to some degree. And then you play back and forth, but they're taking on the characteristics of a doctor. And this is the beginning of perspective taking. So sometimes when our kids are so rigid and they're like, well, I want this, and the other kid wants it too. And there's, this problem. Well, the beginning of that is teaching them, I gotta take off my jacket. It's warm in here. Teaching them perspective taking. And you can't teach perspective taking until you start to learn, I'm pretending to be somebody else, because your brain starts to think, what does a doctor do? You see what I'm saying? Now, the other one from the toy guide that I grabbed is the microphone, having a karaoke microphone. Oh my goodness, pretending you're a singer, pretending, whoever, maybe you're pretending you're Ariana Grande. Right? It's behavior, and asking them to be somebody other than themselves. Sometimes giving them a microphone gives them permission to do that. But I used to love to go after Halloween. I would go and haunt the sales because Halloween costumes would be dirt cheap in the stores. They'd just be getting rid of them. They may still have some if you go to the back of the store and say, they're much better at getting rid of stuff now than they used to be. But we had this whole big, huge trunk full of costumes that sometimes for play dates, we would just be like, let's put on costumes. Now we had to work up to that, because in the beginning, my son didn't want to have anything to do with that. Halloween was going to be a nightmare, but we practiced. We made it fun. Once we got the costume on, we would do something fun. And, he would be Buzz Lightyear. And what does Buzz Lightyear say? Buzz Lightyear says to infinity and beyond, right? So we would play that. And then, dad would pick him up and make him fly, when he was little around the room as Buzz Lightyear. You make it fun. So then he had friends come over, and then they would put on the costumes. All of it is sociodramatic play. When he went to pre-K, it was they called it Fun for Fours. I remember he had already been doing ABA for a while, and we'd been playing with this kind of stuff. So there were things that I remember the teachers just being so amazed. They're like, oh my goodness, that they had a little playhouse, and him and one of the other boys, they had those little toys that they look like bracelets, but you can link them together and make a chain. So he and one of the other little boys decided if you put them together, they looked like Christmas lights. That's creative, right? So they put a whole chain together and decided that they would decorate the outside of the little playhouse in the nursery school room because it was going to look like Christmas lights. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and it became a social thing, and then all the other kids wanted to do it too. But My son would not have known how to do that if we had not practiced those kinds of things at home, to be able to do it. And to have that skill in pre-K helped him to be able to make friends. They would play all kinds of things on the jungle gym and decide that it was a jungle. And somebody would be the monkey, and somebody would be the giraffe. This is all the things that we've been talking about. Functional pretend play, it's imaginative, it's symbolic play, and it's sociodramatic play. You're cooking with gas when you can do all of those things. So I'm always looking for toys that jumpstart that and then trying to push towards that whenever we can. When it's the one thing that I knew coming into parenting, but I already knew how to jump to the other thing. I didn't know about the functional pretend play before you do all that. When my sister's kids were little, I didn't have a car. I was young. I didn't have a car, but I had a driver's license, and I would drive my mother's car, and I would say to them, "Hey, do you guys want to go get ice cream or whatever it was?" And they would say yes, and I'd say, "Okay, well, let's go get in my car." And they would look at each other and be like, "You don't have a car." And I would say, "Yes, I do. It's in the driveway. It's the green car." And they would look at me like I was crazy, and I would go out to the car and I would open the pretend door to the pretend green car, and I would, pretend to get in and turn the key and go run, 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 run. And I go, "Who? What? Are you not coming?" And then they would come scrambling down and they would open pretend doors and we would jog around the block. And they thought that was great fun. If I had just asked them to jog around the block, what do we think would have happened? So I knew that. I knew how to play with kids. But then, I started saying this kind of stuff to my son, and he just looked at me like I was a fly on the wall. Like, are you completely, completely crazy? But once I started playing with the functional pretend play, and they taught me how, you're playing with blocks, whatever, and then you make them crash. So there's a problem. And then, you know, there are all kinds of things that you can do. And then my son learned all of that, right? All of it. Super, super fun. Okay, so next one, Chris. Okay, so building and construction. We were just talking about the blocks. It's so critical that children have building and construction toys because it's a kind of critical thinking and problem solving that I don't really know what else they can get that from. Plus, which a lot of our kids, not all of them, have a unique, what's the word that I want to use? Disposition for this, that sometimes their mind gets this in a way that I think other people doesn't. We see a lot of our kids become engineers or roboticists or excuse me, whatever. It's not all kids, but I just want to say they're not all boys too. The girls like this kind of stuff too. So these are the toys that are like Legos and so many other things. We have two amazing ones in the toy guide Blockaroo. And then, of course, I love Lux Blocks, right? So these are great building toys, but obviously Lego, and there are so many, and again, so many toys, but they start very young. So with a very small child, with a baby, you get them squishy blocks. And that's their first building toy. And then you get the hard blocks, right? And then you get the Duplos. And then you move to the Legos and the other building systems, so they can express their creativity and learn that, okay, if I put the blocks together this way, it falls over. So that's not the way to do it unless I particularly like when they fall over, right? And sometimes we create, as I said before, we'll knock the blocks down and be like, oh no, we create conflict because that creates a moment where we have to problem solve, which is a lovely thing. Think about all the things in a day that you have to do, that you have to negotiate and problem solve to get through. Isn't it like a lot? It's a lot. And if we don't want our kids to be overwhelmed, we want to give them those skills really early on. So construction toys, beginning of that, so, so important. There is a whole other set in skills that I did not put in this presentation that's about sand and water toys, because not everybody has the space to do that, but it's a good thing, you guys, to have your kids building and constructing using more than just blocks and plastic blocks, sand and water if you can, but it's not easily accessible. If you're living in an apartment, it can be hard to get to the woods and play in mud, but mud's good. Uh, You know, it just is. Okay, what's the next one, Chris? Art. Oh, this is such an important area for our kids on the spectrum. And the two that I featured here, although we have every single category has a specifically an art toy, and then we have some that fit other categories. But I loved these 3D tunnel books. Oh my gosh, that you decorate and put together so that it makes that 3D effect. Um, and then I love these clay dinosaurs from the National Geographic from Blue Marble. Really cool because it gives you the thing about it is we always like it when it's fail proof, right? So the reason why this one best art and craft was because for younger kids that love dinosaurs, like if you just gave them clay, how successful are they going to be at creating something that looks like a dinosaur? Now maybe you have a prodigy and they just know how to do it, but for most of our kids it's not going to look anything like a dinosaur. And when they make something and it doesn't feel like, oh, okay, I can recognize it myself, sometimes they get discouraged and they don't want to do that anymore. And what we want to do is create an environment in which they're successful so that they do want to do it more. So that particular kit, I love it because you get the skeletons and all you have to do is mold the clay over it and they look just like dinosaurs. You really can't mess it up. And it allows them to be super creative, work on their hand skills, understand the shape of the dinosaur so that when they eventually make them out of clay without the forms, they're going to have a much better understanding of it. So great, great toy. But I just want to say that art is critical. If we have a society where we're not using art, we're limiting excuse me, we're limiting self-expression. And I can think of so many people on the autism spectrum who've had so much benefit from the arts. From the kids who aren't able to speak, but ask them to sing, and all of a sudden, that mechanism in the brain frees up, and they can sing and know all the words. Hello, that's a big wake up call. The kids who are able to express themselves drawing, and or all different kinds of arts. I'm thinking about the kiddo who constantly tore paper, that was his sensory thing, and he constantly tore paper. And then his mom had him start arranging collages, and come to find out, brilliant, brilliant artist who would make these huge uh, multimedia paintings that were out of torn paper that would look like a macaw parrot and look just like it, you guys. These things sell at art shows. Huge skill. But even, excuse me, now I have a tickle. I'm so sorry. Hold on. Live. What are you going to do? Pardon me. So, so sorry. Ooh. But even if they aren't what you or somebody else considers a brilliant artist, there is a value in self-expression. there is a value in the process. Even if you aren't selling big paintings, there is a value in art. That's why they have art therapy, right? So art is important, and we see that for a lot of our kids, it's a mode of self-expression. And I know that I early on, we did art stuff, and my son just wasn't interested. Try to get him to hold a crayon. He really wasn't about it. But if you gave him a screwdriver and one of those, what do they call them? The metal sets where you can screw the screwdriver. He was all about that. I'm going to build a car, but he didn't want to draw a car. And then somebody came to us and they were asking, they were making T-shirts, and they asked us to submit a bunch of kids artwork, and I wasn't submitting anything from Gem, and they were like, can you ask your child to draw something? And I felt like a bad parent, so I got out some paper and some pens and colored pencils, and I said, draw me something. And he was like, well, like what? And so I thought of the like 4 things that he was really into: robots at the time, a spaceship, and the planets. I don't remember what the 4th one was, but I said, so just draw me a robot, and he started to draw, and I didn't understand the process at all, what he was doing, because it's not how I would have drawn a robot. Because he started like from the back. I don't know. It was interesting, but he drew this 3D robot that was recognizable as a robot. And I was like, who knew you could do that? Excuse me. Then he drew a spaceship and he drew the planets. Well, they put his robot on t-shirts, sold them. Uh, he was 10 years old and he had t-shirts with his artwork, a kid who was not, and he loved it. And he started drawing more things. And I had sort of like let that pass. Art is important. Do art with your kids. Okay, let's move on to the next one and hopefully I won't choke. All right. So puzzles. Puzzles are great because it's a level of problem solving, right? But it's a visual problem solving. And there's more than one kind of puzzle. I have two great examples here. One is a game called Gnuzzle, where there's two different puzzles and you can race. And they're traditional lock puzzles, right? But the other one is for little kids, and it's a puzzle, but they have to use a magnet to drag things to be in the appropriate category. It's still a puzzle, and they can learn counting and colors and all kinds of things. So, but puzzles are great for our kids. They're short, little bursts of problem solving. And doing it in a very visual way. There's something about the combination of the visual and the problem solving that's very effective. And a lot of our kids love puzzles. But like I said, there are 3D puzzles. There are, the two traditional jigsaw puzzles. Sure, all of that. There are puzzles where you have to move a piece to be able to unveil something. So many kinds of puzzles. And of course, adults still love puzzles. And whether it's a word search puzzle, or they have all those metal, Hanami makes the metal puzzles that come apart. Whoo! It's relaxing for the brain. Uses a very specific part of the brain that's super important. Okay, on to the next one. Okay, so sensory. Sensory, I only put one. I think I have this coming up again. I think this might be an extra slide. But sensory toys, let's go on to the next one, but I'll talk about it. Sensory toys are super duper important because our kids have a sensory need. I think that's an extra slide too. Let's go on to the next one. I think I might have not deleted some slides that were in there. No, I've sent the wrong PowerPoint. Go ahead. Reading and listening. There we go. Thank you, Chris. It's my PowerPoint. It's my fault, you guys. But reading and listening, it's so important that we read to our children and read with our children. And there's a whole progression of reading right in the beginning when babies, we need to be reading to our babies. They even advocate, and I certainly did, reading to your babies when they're in the womb. They say that it's important that your child hears your voice. Now, for most of us, our kids are here and, that ship may have sailed. But if you have another one, read to them in the womb. Have your older child read to them in the womb because they need to recognize your voices. But once they're here, it's important to read books. And those beginning board books are critical. But it's not a static thing. A lot of parents will say to me, I don't know how to read to my child. My child won't sit still long enough to read a book. I was just watching the video with a mom who was saying the book Goodnight Moon, and she could never get her child to sit still long enough to read Goodnight Moon. And now he has double PhD in robotics, right? He's a genius. But when he was little, she couldn't get him to sit still. Now, there are lots of tricks for that. I think one of the most important things is you got to set the scene, right? You have to create a moment. And it's different for everybody, but I will tell you what our ritual was. He would have a bath and we would play, right? But while he was having the bath, we would dim lights in the house, right? Because we're getting ready for the environment of going to bed. So we would have the bath, he'd exert himself in the bath. We would have art projects in the bath. We always had the foam that you could do in the bath and the crayons that wiped off. Make sure you get the bath crayons, not the regular crayons. Those are hard to get off. So a lot was going on in the bath. So much fun. We'd sing, do all kinds of things in the bath. And then when he would come out of the bath, we would do some kind of lotion massage head to toe. Dry skin runs in my family, but also it's good for our kids to get that whole sensory, and then we would get in the fresh, clean jammies. Ooh, such a wonderful, snug feeling to have had a full body massage and get in your jammies, right? And then it would be story time. And in the beginning, that was hard, but my mom helped me. She gave him an apple from the refrigerator. It was a cold apple. I don't know why that was important, but giving them something to hold on to, we learned is key. That they're snug, right? And we give them, now for your kiddo, it might be a stuffed animal, but for my kid, it was holding an apple. He didn't eat the apple. Sometimes he would mouth on it, but he didn't eat the apple. Some kids, it's holding, their stuffed giraffe, whatever it is, but they need something to hold on to. And then you read to them. But as you read to them, and you got to start with the board books because it's got to be short, colorful, wonderful, and you read, but you got to imbue it with a little, like I love the Good Night Moon, because there are things that you can say, good night mittens, and then you say, let's point to the mittens. And even a baby that doesn't know the word mittens, and you take their finger and you go, you point to the mitten and you hug them and go, yes, those are the mittens, right? So it's interactive. One of my favorite books to read with kids, I was just at a center this summer, and we didn't have the book, but there was an older kid and we did a whole song and we acted it out. But I love going on a bear hunt. Oh my gosh. The physicality of, the family goes into the woods and they say, there's mud. And then you go through the mud and you act it out. Right. But also we started pointing something out in the book that they, whether it's you have to point to the mittens, but for that book, for going on a bear hunt, I would say, where's the dog? And he would have to find the dog on the page. And I would say, where's the baby? The baby was usually by the dog. He would point to the baby. Now, in the beginning, he didn't know what a dog was, didn't know what a baby was. And I would take his finger. I go, where's the baby? And I go, oh, there's the baby. And then I would hug him, right? And he, started to put that together. So really early on, you got to read and you got to make it interactive. Now, as the child gets older, I love the books that have every third word has a picture. We used to read the Scooby-Doo books, and so you'd be reading and you'd say, Scooby walked by there'd be a picture of a tree. And I would point to the tree and I would say, Scooby walked by the tree. And I would say, where's the tree? And he'd point to the tree, right? So eventually it got to the point where I could say to him, Scooby walked by and he would see the symbol of the tree and he would say tree. Fabulous. Because then eventually, and reading the same book, you got to have a few books, right? It's not just one book over and over, but reading the same books, they get more familiar. They start to recognize, oh, that word is Scooby. So eventually he would say Scooby, and I would say walked by he would say tree, right? Because we're building what his responsibility is. When we got to chapter books, first we liked chapter books that had a picture every few pages, because we would stop. And when we got to that point, we would say, what do you think is going to happen on the next page? Predicting, huge, right? Always a discussion of why do you think she did that? And we would, in the beginning, I would read a paragraph and then I would read one line and he would read one line. Then it was, I would read a paragraph, he'd read a paragraph. Then it was, I'll read a page, you read a page, right? And then it was just him reading out loud to me. Asking children to read out loud is one of the greatest things that you can do for them. It's going to strengthen their speech. It also becomes a social thing, because when you're asked to read aloud in school, the kids who don't know how to do that, oh, the stress of that, right? But kids who do, it's a great skill. So then eventually we had the same book and he would read it and I would read it and then we would discuss it. And when we would travel, when he was older, like 12, 13, 14, we would travel and we would listen to a book on tape and then discuss it. It's good stuff, you guys. So wherever your child is reading, amazing. We have some great books in the toy guide. What's next, Chris? Okay, so building social skills. I love these two examples. The Bene Tales They get two stuffed animals that the tails are magnetic, and if they get close, they hold tails. But each one of the books teaches a different social skill, like bravery and courage. Oh my gosh, right? So great. All of the stuff that they make at Benny World has social skills and teaches them a social skill. But I love these emotion dolls for very young kids they come a whole bunch of dolls, excuse me, and each doll has a different expression on its face. So now it becomes a thing where even with a baby, you can act out and you go, oh, this baby is sad. Oh no, the baby is sad. Do we need to hug the baby and say, it's okay, don't be sad? We're acting it out. But the baby who's, oh, this baby is surprised, right? What a great, great toy to do that. These kinds of things build social skills, and I absolutely love it. I'm pedaling to the metal because I know we're almost out of time. Okay, so on to the next one, Chris. Okay, then there's the whole thing of feeding passions and building skills. So if you know that there's something your child is really into, well, you want to sit there and ask yourself, what toy could I give them that would feed this passion? I have a friend whose son was really into Titanic. And so one year it was a huge coffee table book that detailed all the different things of the Titanic because they were feeding their passion. And then they went to the Titanic exhibit, right? Uh, I love in our toy guide this year the Make Music Count. If you have a kiddo that you think might be musically inclined, what a great, great thing. And it comes with a piano and teaches them all about how math and music go together. Brilliant. But I also, and this is why it was one of my favorites, is the blank comic book. Some of our kids are budding storytellers and they love a graphic novel. And this just gives them pages that have the little frames that they can tell their own story. Feed their passion. What is it that they like? What have they mentioned that they like? And then you just have to think of what thing can I give them that will get them to the next level? Not the end level, right? But what's the next level for them to see if they're really into this passion and want to grow? All kinds of gifts in the toy guide that have that, but use your imagination. Sometimes it's not a gift, it's an experience that you want to take them to. I love here in Los Angeles. I don't know if they still do it since the pandemic, but when Jem was little, the Pasadena Philharmonic used to do this thing once a month where they would have a musical petting zoo. And I was like, what is that? Are there going to be goats and they're going to play music? No, they took all the instruments in the orchestra and they laid them out, and the kids got to try whatever they wanted to try. Now, even before COVID, they wiped them all down in between because, some of them are woodwinds. They're putting their mouths on them. But, he got to play everything so that eventually he decided he wanted to play the trumpet. And he knew he wanted to play the trumpet because he played a trumpet. I was jealous. I wanted to be a kid. I wanted to do it too. Feed their passion. Find things in your community that you can take them to that will help feed the passion. They're there. Sometimes you got to hunt. All right, what's next, Chris? Okay, card and board games. This is really, I feel like parents poo poo a lot. And sometimes people will call me up and go, I don't understand. I signed my child up for therapy and insurance is paying for it. And all they're doing is playing games. And I'm like, well, what were they learning when they were playing the games? Like, because there's so many things you can learn while doing a board game. These are two of my favorites from this year, Splurt and Organ Attack. I find Organ Attack hysterical. For teens and adults, it's hysterical. I love it. But what do we need to learn on? How learn with an individual? Do we need to learn emotional self-regulation? Oh, we can work on that playing a board game. We absolutely can. Do we need to work on social skills? Do we need to learn on taking turns? Do we need to learn about being a good loser? Do we need to learn being a good winner? Do we need to learn how to lie? Well, you can do that in board and card games because you have to bluff, right? Uh, and listen, lots of parents say, well, I don't want to teach my child how to lie. Really? So when a person comes up to them in the parking lot and says, "Are you here with your mother?" and they're not, you don't want them to go, "Yeah, my mother's right over there." Trust me, you do want to teach your child, we call them white lies, right? Things that protect you. You do want to, and you got to teach your child how to bluff, right? So all these lessons are in skills, by the way, but card and board games are, they, if you think about it, they teach problem solving, and it's something that you do that's social. They're really magical for teaching our kids lots and lots of skills. So don't poo-poo the board game thing. I will be offended. Okay, on to the next one. Building language. We are so, in fact, there's a toy award and that's just for building language, and I put two in here. You, if you've watched the show, you know I love me some Bubbles for teaching language. Oh my gosh, I've seen them be so effective at getting to language so quickly with kids that, everybody's like, oh, they're completely nonverbal, and getting to utteration and language quickly with Bubbles. They're amazing. And the other puppets, I mean, I just love puppets, and the Folk Manus puppets that we feature in the toy guide are just delightful. But there are so many things that build language, and there's a whole curriculum and skills just about building language. But I love these toys, really, really helpful. Okay, on to the next one. Sensory. Okay, here we go to the sensory. And these are two of my favorites in this year's guide. The morph, which I just love. It is the craziest little sensory thing that you can do all kinds of things with. And I have shown it to little kids, I have shown it to teenagers, I have shown it to adults, and everybody loses their mind for it. Everybody loses their mind for it. It happens to be in the caregiver category because I think adults love it the most, but it's appropriate for all kinds of kids. And then of course, Aaron's thinking putty. I put in the one that has all the little emotions in it, but putty is personal. But believe me, there is a putty that you will love, and there is a putty that your child will love, and they aren't necessarily the same putties. You know what I'm saying? But putty is great. We know that when you're playing with the putty, it allows a part of your brain to relax, and it allows another part of your brain to expand, which is very creative. So thinking putty, fabulous, and we love Aaron's thinking putty. Okay, I think we have one or two more, Chris. Yeah, problem solving. Anything that has logic and problem solving. Now, sometimes this is also a puzzle, but I love these two particular toys. We have the El Castillo Pyramid, which is really for older kids that love math, but it's a very specific problem solving. And the other one is, I'm going to forget the name of it. It's the the Dino Maze. That's what it is. And it's from Discovery Toys. And both amazing toys. And we have several other toys that are there that are logic. Most of the time this is our older kids, but there are logic toys that you can do with little kids that are little mazes that they can do in little puzzles. But we want to start with doing simple problem solving, and then we want to move to complex problem solving, and then we want to move to social problem solving, because that's what your kids need more than anything else. But we have to start by just solving simple problems so that they get the success and they get empowered and feel like they can. So again, all of these lessons, skills for autism.com. What else we got, Chris? Was that it? No, that was it. Okay. So toys are amazing teaching tools. Don't forget that. I know that a lot of things are already purchased for the holidays, but if there's something still that you're like, I just don't know what to do, remember that the toy guide is there for you. I always encourage you to go pick the actual age category that the person is in. Look at all the toys in that category. And if you don't see something in that category, then look at the two ages that are adjacent to it and see if there's something. And then just look at the whole guide. And if you really can't find something, which I find very hard to believe, then look at last year's or the year before, because we just have amazing toys that we feature. And all of them have some sort of value for our kids. So check it out. If we don't end up doing another show before the new year, I just want to say happy holidays to all of you. It's such a privilege to get to be here with you and hear your stories and hear the kinds of things. I'm just checking. uh, to hear the kinds of things that you are doing and to learn from you is it's such a privilege, and I feel so grateful to have that opportunity. I want you to know that in 2026 we have stuff that we are planning that I think you're going to find very exciting, and we're moving forward with positivity. That's the key, and we're here for you. And so I want to say to you with love, happy holidays, happy new year. If we don't see you, we will see you in 2026. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye bye for now. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.